the good word, y'all. DKB here. So we are running through another scouting breakdown, another offensive line prospect, and one that was actually recently mocked in, I believe it was Todd McShay's 2023 NFL mock draft. And today we are looking at left tackle Broderick Jones of Georgia. So what do we need to know right off the bat before we dive into some of the positives and opportunities of his game film and a lot of the scouting reports that are broken down? We are looking at a 6'4", 310-pound Goliath. He's not up there with the DeJuan Jones, but when you want to talk about looking at a guy that just looks physically imposing, Broderick Jones fits the mold. He has a background, former 5-star recruit. He was pretty heavily involved in basketball as well, actually being able to get his team into playoff situations there as well. And we are talking about a 2-time college football champion in 2022 as well as 2021 with Georgia, although his first realistic starting experience was in 2022. The man is going to be one of the most athletically gifted offensive linemen that we speak about, period. I don't know how deep we'll get into this full tackle class, but he's definitely up there in the elite realms of what can be offered at that position. One of the best things that I was able to pick up on that speaks to that is the fact that it's said he was reported to clock as fast as 19 miles per hour on the GPS, which I think is insane when you're talking about a 300-plus pound man, running at you. And offensive linemen don't tend to get full speed like that, but in short bursts, you can imagine what that actually look like. He does have some potential ability to play guard. I don't think it's required. I haven't seen anybody saying they absolutely believe his shift is necessary. There are some that think he'll be better as a right tackle than a left tackle, but again, offers a little bit of versatility. Over his career, he's played somewhere in the realm of 1,264 snaps, so it's a little bit on the lighter side with a lot of that coming in the last 2 years, but still. Those have ended in playoff champion results, so you can't really be too disappointed with that. Some of the other things, he did get his first playing time basically due to an injury by another pretty sought after prospect in Jamari Salyer, and that was in 2021. That essentially opened up some legit time for him to play. And then, of course, he's been able to garner himself first team all SEC recognition by the Associated Press. So when you want to talk about where he's coming, his background as an SEC player, you can essentially consider him in the realms of like the superstar ranks. Nothing extremely crazy, but he's definitely in terms of the high-end talent side when you want to talk about the SEC, which a lot of people recognize as the closest thing to being able to deliver pro-ready NFL talent. And for people that aren't really aware, because even I am not super heavily involved in college, we're talking about guys like Will Anderson Jr. that he would play against, who a lot of people consider, a top draft pick that isn't considered a quarterback in this 2023 NFL draft. And to Broderick Jones' pleasure, he didn't allow any sacks whatsoever in 2022, and he actually faced guys like Will Anderson Jr., and so that lets you know what kind of caliber player that we're dealing with. So what is the scouting report? What does the game tape say based on all the things I've been able to check out? The biggest highlights would be the sack totals, right? He's had about 634 true pass block sets. He's only allowed 2 sacks over his career, which again, we're only talking about over a span of 19 games, with most of that coming in 2022 and 2021. But still, very, very impressive considering the conference that he's in. Some of the big highlights for him is that he hunts down targets when he's lead blocking or being able to pull, which is a lot of what you're going to see in a West Coast style offense. And he does this exceptionally well at the second and third levels. He's able to mirror effectively inside and outside to account for people that have multiple move setups or, have some counters. A lot of people talk about his IQ out there on the field and his spatial awareness when it comes to his ability to handle twists and stunts. And he's able to diversify himself using some vertical and diagonal pass sets, which is something I have no idea what it means, right? I'm not out here scouting offensive line talents, but visually it makes a lot of sense in terms of what he's able to do with opening up his hips and being able to adjust to what's happening. Good ability to latch on to defenders and then being able to pass them to their teammates so he can work out on the island, as well as being stuck close together. And one of the things that stood out over all of the scouting reports that I've seen was he has outstanding to elite grip strength. If he gets your hands on you in the right manner, which is basically hitting somebody square in the chest, it's a wrap. Whatever he wants to do to you is getting done. He can refit his hands on if counter moves are used, so he does have a tendency to not always hit where he wants to in terms of being able to latch onto his targets. And if people use counter moves effectively, he is able to refit his hands into the proper areas in order to stall or still negate his defender. He's physical. A lot of people talk about his ability to go out there and pancake and maul defenders, his physical disposition. I've heard people say that, he's ruthless. He's ruthless and a violent disposition is word for word what I've seen on there. And then he does pretty good at attacking leverage miscues. So if the defender's coming in there without a plan, they're off balance, he's going to bury them into the ground more often than not. He's able to go out there and create movement at the line of scrimmage, which is a huge plus. I don't think any of the two guys that we covered so far, in Cody Mock and I can't remember who the other guy was, but I don't believe we brought up the fact that they had the strength to create a push at the line of scrimmage. So that's one of the things that stood out that I really liked as well. He works well in terms of combo blocking. He has great natural raw strength, but also that functional strength that we're looking for. And it seems like it's a little bit of a toss-up, but from what I've seen, he may be a better pass protector than a run blocker, but it can switch up. It seems like it depends on what the scheme is and what they're going to be asked of him immediately. Is going to depend on where you see more of those benefits, but just consider that he can be and or will be currently a plus blocker in one of those two respects. A lot of people talks about his proportions, elite length, not in terms of arm length and stuff like that necessarily. We don't know what those numbers look like, but when you look at him, the 6'4", 310-pound build, he has what looks like exceptional arm longs and a great wingspan, and legs that tend to match what the height looks like and things like that. So he's set up very well. It's going to be a huge thing that a lot of people continue to talk about. And they mentioned his high level of flexibility, which allows him to swivel and be able to reset with ease when we talk about things like the combo blocking and going out there and being on an island. And one of the things that actually seemed like it was kind of understated, but was a huge part of his game, was that he's able to go out there and utilize one-hand extensions when he's being attacked in 2-on-1 situations. So consider things like stunts and twists. He has two guys coming at him at once. He's on an island. He can punch a guy away with one hand, keep another guy at bay with the other hand until support falls into place, or whatever that ends up looking like with the ball getting out of hand. And I find that absolutely fascinating when you consider the caliber of guys that he's having, rush across his face on a snap-by-snap basis. Now, some of the opportunities in his game. We mentioned only 19 games of playing time for him, so he's lacking a lot of technical refinement and polish in terms of his mechanics. Right now, he's a guy that definitely still relies a lot more on his physical build and a lot of the natural tools at his disposal, like the elite grip strength, to be able to show his dominance over the course of a game, and he can definitely make things a lot easier on himself if he does refine some of the things. Issues would be he can leave his chest exposed a lot, and his hand leverage and hand placement isn't great. So when he leaves his chest exposed, it causes an issue where he can become unbalanced, even though he's great at being able to mirror his opponents. That can cause an issue if he gets rocked from one side to the left and people have counter moves that are set up and different things of that nature. He doesn't have consistent, timely punches, and so while he's very strong, he's great with the grip strength and all of that kind of stuff. If he doesn't land it correctly and on time, he's going to find himself in trouble. His feet need to be settled quicker. He doesn't have a consistent kick slide, which can cause him again to become a little bit unbalanced. He can be impatient in pass block sets, and so you can see, which is common for a lot of people, a bit of overreaching, and that ends up causing balance issues as well. There's some issues I've seen where they mention improving his weight distribution. So that can be relying on maybe his inside hip too much, exposing his outside hip, different things like that. It's going to really depend on a down by down basis, run versus pass blocking, how he's going to want to position himself. But weight distribution can be a bit of a concern. Leverage consistency concerns. He comes up high off the snap. Taller tackles are going to deal with this kind of concern, so not the hugest issue. There's some lurching issues. We did see that because his hand placement isn't great. So generally what happens from what was detailed out is, again, you want to hit a guy square in the chest. You can be able to control them. You don't have to worry about the shoulder pads. He either goes too far inside, which think about kind of doing like a diamond push-up. If you ever try one of those, it's very tough in terms of being able to utilize your hands to get a lot of power and push off the ground. So he can lose a lot of leverage that way, or he hits guys outside of the shoulder pads, which can cause problems. And it was mentioned that can lead to him bear hugging a lot of guys. His feet stops moving when he's facing guys that may be equally or more physically imposing than him, depending on kind of what's happening in that play. And then the strength doesn't always match the athleticism. So athletically, the man is top tier. He's undoubtedly one of the best three tackles athletically. He's probably even up in that same realm in terms of strength, but that doesn't always correlate because of his bad mechanics. And so if he can piece that all together, you got a guy that's going to ragdoll you on every play and also be able to go out there and hit your safety in a matter of seconds before a guy even knows what's happening. He can also dip his head, which causes him to, from what I've seen as well, I only watched like one highlight tape, or I can't even call it a highlight, but one that they said was one I should check out for scouting. He dips his head a lot, which this was called out, and he gets shed on blocks that really he shouldn't have any business losing out on, often because of that issue. On zone run plays, he can make his way to the second level too quick as well, which is a huge concern. So we know he has the speed, he has the power, he has the athleticism. Sometimes there's a little bit too much of a rush to get up there and try to find somebody. And so when you go too far ahead in order to try to find a defender, somebody can actually slide through and make a tackle for loss, or at least one that cuts off as big of a gain that can be made. And we talked about some lazy footwork as well, and it's probably the single most reason that leads him a little bit more susceptible than others to something like a spin move or a counter inside. So from what I've seen, most draft mocks and these experts, they still have him as a first round talent. There was only one that I've seen, which actually did probably one of the better jobs of breaking down that I've seen as I've kind of ran through these three prospects. Excuse me. They mentioned having him as a low first round pick, but more comfortable as like a high second rounder. And then there were two pro comparisons. One, which was DJ Humphries, and they seen him as a better player than him, but the similarities are there from like a physical standpoint, and the similarities in same amount of like game tape, different things like that. And the other one, which was interesting, was Ikem Ekwonu, and they considered him a more raw version of him, who can probably get to the same level and ability as him quickly, depending on which team he goes to. So that is that's the report on Broderick Jones. Again, most recently mocked to us, I believe, again by Todd McShay for the 2023 NFL Draft. But let me know what your guys' thoughts are. Two-time champion, elite athleticism, a little bit raw, but I think we have the infrastructure in place that would allow us to see him develop pretty quickly, especially over the course of like an off season. One of the things that were talked about was the fact that he did see pretty, I wouldn't say massive improvements because that's a bit overselling it, but there were very tangible, exciting improvements made from 2021 to 2022 when he became a full starter. So let me know what your guys' thoughts are, and I will catch you again. Peace.